We are back with. I actually remember telling you that it was time to be awkward again. But then again, I'm always awkward, so it's nothing new. Nothing new. But we finally did it.
Yeah. Oh, finish the book or figured out the technical difficulties.
Both.
I really hope this is picking up because I'm afraid this one's gonna be the like the
The end of our book club?
yeah. I can't let this one destroy us because it's been like what 4 months, 6 months.
Well, we were talking about finishing like February of this year, but a lot of just things came up.
And then summer
Yeah, summer, COVID, just everything.
and some of the stuff like reading it, I don't know what it was. I just felt like I was on the same page forever. I know we kind of in the past 8 months or so we did kind of mention it a little bit how page numbers were tricky. So like be reading for an hour and you only realize you only a couple pages.
It's not the kind of book that you can put down for like a week and then try to start
Right.
and remember where you are, because you just basically have to start all over. And that's basically what we had to do several times. I mean, I think I had to restart the book like 3 or 4 times, and then we just decided that we weren't going to let it get the best of us. But
I know. I mean, I restarted it for sure after the last video. It feels like so long ago. I don't even
yes,
know.
yes. I was going to mention that it didn't just almost end this book club. It almost was the end of me. I don't know if I ever told you. I basically had to move heaven and earth to get this book read and finished. I don't know if we ever talked about it, but I was getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to read it, Ryan. There was no other time, and so I said we have to do this. So that's what I did, and I was talking about it with a friend of mine, and she said, "Joy, that sounds like absolute torture." And it would have been absolute torture, except for the fact that it's actually a very good story.
That's what I was trying to get at with like I didn't know how to word like deter people because saying it's like long and it feel like the reading it just felt like it took longer because so far it's the best one. I think it's hands down just the best. Even without the group, it's just a really good story. It's a really good book.
I definitely agree.
And I don't want to say these things, these negative aspects of making it feel like it took almost a year to read or whatever. Like, and like the page numbers are like mentally tricky because, like I said, you think you'd be reading, you think you'd be much further ahead, and you look at your page count, and you've almost made no progress. But at the same time, I really, really like this one. This one is my favorite, even past the Three Kingdoms. Like this one's the best one so far.
So we can both agree that it's probably the longest book we have ever read, or it just felt like the longest book.
Yeah, I mean, I've read some long books, and this one just felt like it took so much.
Ryan, it had to have been longer than 1,003 pages. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what the page number indicates. It had to have been longer than 1,003. Some books that we've read that were 1,000, I mean, over 1,000 pages didn't seem this long.
Well, even Arabian Nights, which was 10 volumes at what 300 to 500 pages a piece, didn't feel this long. And that one, there was whole sections that just droned on and on and on. And this one was quite the opposite, where nothing really seemed to drone on. It just never, you never got further.
It didn't seem that we were making any progress. I made the exact same statement. I thought to myself, okay, I've read for 2 or 3 hours, and how did I just read 20 or 30 pages? I didn't understand it. It was the oddest thing, and I'm glad that you experienced or your experience was very similar, because I thought it was just me.
Yeah, it had to be something with the. This is the only version we could really find was that the PDF online, so it had to be something with that. But I really don't. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it or what to make of it. How just time didn't move, but like not in a way that like the book was so enthralling. Time froze. Just the page count never progressed. It seemed.
This book just slowed down time for us. I mean, the
It's-
pandemic sped it up, but this book slowed it down.
I don't want people. I don't want people to get the wrong idea because it really is the best one.
I thought it was worth reading too.
I mean, even it's like the Three Kingdoms where there was such a large, vast amount of character. Couldn't follow every single one, and it's very episodic with the introduction. Like the first, what I would say, even the first 3/4 of it is basically just introducing the 100 stars of heaven or whatever.
I was actually going to tell you, I think I remember making the statement that I didn't really know where this was going or how it was going to be the Robin Hood story that you described.
Right.
But
Like I said, that's just something that's just what I saw somewhere.
I mean, but it all came together, and I definitely understood the description after
Right.
a
It took
while.
it did take some time getting there, and like I said, I couldn't keep track of all the names. There's some names that I remember, but like what really helped because like with the Three Kingdoms that had those like playing card picture kind of
Mhm.
things. What helped with this one was the fact they all had those ridiculous nicknames, or like
Oh, which I thought was fun.
some of them were like absurd, and some of
Mhm.
them were like kind of actually describe the person. But that helped be able to place who the person was. Because like I said, there were so many names, but
Right.
Stumpy Tiger. I'm gonna remember Stumpy Tiger better than
Mhm.
I don't even know what his name was. Woo something.
Yes, I know what you mean. I mean, but don't you think that it was somewhat easier to follow? I mean, although it became as militaristic as the Romance of the Three Kingdoms,
Right.
but in a different way, sort of. Uh, well, no, I mean, towards the end, it sort of became the same type of military story.
Similar. I'd say it's similar. With the Three Kingdoms, it was more like a guidebook, and it said like here was their plan, and this is how it came out. Where this one, they just kept trying to have the battles, and they wouldn't go into as much detail about what they were going to do. They just kind of ran out
Right.
and did it. So I think that made the adventure parts. Well, I guess there's no really talk about without spoiling it, but after all these pages of getting all these people, it just took like no time at all to just knock them all out,
Right.
just one after the other, which
Right.
I thought was. But yeah, they just ran out and died. Essentially.
Yeah. The there were a lot of characters like the Three Kingdoms, but I think it focused on, or it helped that the story became more focused on like certain characters
Right.
that became sort of like the main characters.
Well, I guess too. What also helped was that Three Kingdoms. There was three different kingdoms, and you had different people, and then those people would cross sides, and you had to keep track of who was on, like
Mm-hmm.
working for whose kingdom. Where
Mm-hmm.
this was just the group, and you had the main what 50 and the other 70. I forget the numbers, but they were like broken up into two
Mm-hmm.
groups really, and so it was easier that if they follow along because there was only one main group and no one really crossed sides
Mm-hmm.
except if they were
They were lured to come to
yeah,
the outlaw side after they were defeated and made to see how evil the other ministers
right.
were. Okay, so we are going to have to talk about the end, but we can save that for later because that's an important aspect to this book, I think. But okay, so I enjoyed reading about the different characters, and one in particular really stood out for me just because I didn't like him.
You about to say Lee Kui?
Yes, Black Whirlwind. I
Yeah.
just found him so I didn't think he had any redeeming qualities other than his loyalty and just his passion. But I
I was gonna bring him up too because he would go do very awful things and just nonchalantly like kill children, and then
It was all for my brothers.
Yeah, and then like Song Jiang was just like, "Well, next time don't do that, or you'll be punished." And then he would do it again and be like, "Well, don't do it again, or you'll be punished." And it's just,
That
but
was what was so frustrating. I mean, because the others were, just killed off, but then again, they just kept, or the leader just kept giving him, more chances, and I just was really confused. But then again, oh, he plays in the ending, so
but yeah, yeah, but like like you said with the ending, maybe it was meant to show like that extreme loyalty to.
I guess. But okay, I know that I'm always bringing Nietzsche up, but I just don't know if I actually agree with this quote. So, according to Nietzsche, one must have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star. What do you think?
Well, did he read this book? Because they were all the dancing stars and
Yes, I mean, so I think like each of the leaders corresponded to a certain star in the
mhm,
heavens, right?
something like that.
Which I thought was really neat.
But yeah, I'd see that because they were all. I mean, they obviously all did something. Even the ones that got defeated and changed sides when they were defeated, they still did something that made them an outlaw.
Hmm.
So I guess that. But the outlaws were actually the good guys. I just thought it was strange that like Sanjay's whole goal was just to rejoin like some sort of like become a government official again in the right.
Hmm.
And that
Oh,
I thought that was interesting because like most times an outlaw they just want to when you think outlaw they want to just live on their own and not be bothered. Where his whole goal was to do the opposite and be reintroduced into society, which is I thought was
right.
interesting.
They wanted to get the emperor's amnesty,
Yes.
right? And that was, I mean, that was quite adventurous too. Just how all of that happened. I mean, because they actually received the amnesty, but they thought that it was a trick or something, and
Yeah.
then there were more. Yes, I mean, so it took a while, but then even afterwards, should we talk about the ending now?
We
Or
can. We can jump around.
okay, what are your thoughts on the ending? Were you as upset as I was?
I don't know if I was upset. I was just more surprised that they I get but how else you gonna end something like this without either everyone going well by the end there was only what 30 of them anyway.
Right, I think so.
And then even then they just slowly like a couple of them lived to old age, but I was surprised. I guess how else you gonna
But Ryan, hear me
but
out.
then
Hear me out. Oh, okay. So it seems to me like a large portion of the book were the outlaws also trying to fight the corrupt ministers.
right.
But then they in turn end up being killed by them.
Yeah.
And I was very, very unhappy with the ending for that very reason. But then after venting to Kathleen and thinking about it for a few days, I thought, well, it had to end that way. It was still very upsetting to me.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like I said, I don't know how else you would end it. And, with he finally he poor Lee Cooey at that point when he tricked him to joining him and but he was
Hmm.
just so that guy was so wild that even that happened and he was like, oh, okay. Like he didn't seem bothered by the fact that he was just poisoned by the person he was so loyal to.
Hmm.
Big
Yeah.
if anyone wants to read this one, that's a
Well, so I'm hoping there's not another book by him because I have not been happy with any of the endings.
I was gonna ask, so this is supposedly what one of like the five ancient Chinese epics that's like well known.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be would you want to pick up the other I think it's 4 or 5, I can't remember, but would you or 3, would you pick up the next one or are you done with ancient Chinese epics?
I wouldn't say that I'm done. I mean, because I think overall I have basically enjoyed
I have.
them.
Me too.
Um, there are merits to each one, but just the endings. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I would know too now like that I would have to like mentally prepare myself, and it's almost like a triathlon.
We'll have to block off another
Right.
year.
Yeah, you'd have to just like train and get ready and then just go forth and do the thing.
Did you
For
find this one easier to read than the Three Kingdoms?
I'd say yeah. I think so. Even though yeah, Three Kingdoms was long, it just felt like, I guess cuz it had those different chapters that went back and forth with the version we found, but
Mhm.
this one just, like I said, it felt longer to read, but it was easier to follow in a lot of ways.
It had a more narrative feel to it. I
Right.
think the Three Kingdoms was very militaristic, and I think it was easy to get bogged down in the details,
Right. Yeah,
and it
the
sort of dragged on somewhat too. I
like all the
think.
specificity of the movements,
Yes,
and yeah.
and the battles.
And where this one was like two people went out, they fought 5 rounds. Here's
Mhm.
who lived. It's very it kept the pace moving a little bit better.
Yes. Oh, I agree. Were you expecting the magic that was in the book? I mean, I didn't think that there would
Mm-mm.
be as much, but I was pleasantly surprised.
But I guess it shouldn't be too surprising, even though, because Three Kingdoms is said to be more of like more accurate with history, and this one's known to be completely fict- fictionalized. And but even Three Kingdoms had a lot of magic, so it shouldn't have been. The first time it happens, it happened so far into the book, it took a back for a second, but the whole thing wasn't magic. It was like, oh, that makes sense
There were
for this world.
aspects to it,
Yeah.
I guess, that really helped to carry the story for me at
Or you know
least.
what? I'm sure there's a lot of magic we lost with all this technology. There's probably something in the woods and stuff and marshes that's just lost to our day and age with cars and phones.
So, what is your final rating
So
of
this
of the book?
I put it
Yeah.
at the top of the list.
Oh, I agree. A solid five for me.
Yeah, I'd have to.
I mean, if I don't think too hard about the ending, but
I said, how are you gonna end it though? It had to.
did they have to like die at the minister's hands? I mean, I don't know.
But not everyone did, and
No, but like the three Songjang, well, Black Whirlwind, and then someone else. I don't remember his name.
it was a Wu Song. There was two Woos that were very similar, and I kept mixing them up. It was like Wu Chong and Wu Song or
Oh
something, like,
yes, yes,
or Wu Long or something like
yes.
that.
I
There was
know who
two,
you're.
and one Wu was the teacher who was like the smart and never fought, and the other one was the wild guy who was like really really good with weapons, and it was just that part
Oh
tripped me up a little
yes,
bit because I kept thinking, I was like, what is this teacher dude doing? Like, this came out of nowhere. I was like, oh, I got the names mixed up in my mind.
Wu Song and Wu Yong,
Yang, that's it.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, so he was the military strategist.
I want to say Song was the guy who was the Taoist teacher. I think. I think.
I don't know why I thought that he was the military strategist.
That yeah.
Right?
He became the strategist.
Okay.
Yeah, he was the
Oh
brains
yes, yes,
behind it all.
yes, yes, yes. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
because he was one of the original like 4 or 5 guys at the mansion before
Mhm.
the one dude that was the leader died.
Mhm.
But even how they built all that, like how you thought this one guy was going to take over, and then something happened, and then Songjang didn't even want it, so it was a whole like
Mhm.
him finally accepting it and then leading them all to
He always
minor
tried to give
victories.
away his power, but then again, everybody, just wanted him as his leader.
But that's I guess that's good though, because the person that doesn't want it probably should be the one leading. So
Yes. And he was well loved, so I guess he was a good leader.
I did think it was kind of wild though how Songjang had all those battles and then didn't lose anybody, and then there was that final one where
Mhm.
majority of his
Right.
outlaws were killed off, and I was like, well, that escalated quite quickly. And some of them
Mhm.
were just kind of weird, like the one guy who was just walking and got bit by a snake or something.
Oh
It wasn't
yes.
always it wasn't always like one guy just kind of fell off a cliff. One guy was pushed off a cliff, and then one
Mhm.
guy just stumbled, and it
Mhm.
was like wasn't always like. I guess that made it also seem more real too, where it wasn't always like grand everyone didn't end with like a big military like battle. It was just sometimes it was "Eh, this happened, or
Mhm.
even was it Sagacious Lou? He was like, time to die.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we forgot to mention just how violent this book.
I was gonna mention.
I forgot to mention that it's one of, if not the longest, most violent book I have ever read. Uh, the cutting off of heads and pulling out of hearts, I was
Hearts,
very
chopping limbs, slicing
right.
throats.
Mm,
Just yeah, it was ridiculous, and it wasn't even like implied, and it wasn't like gory. It wasn't like a shock value thing, but they didn't shy away from battle axes going into body parts and
mhm.
ridiculous. I wasn't expecting it to be because like Three Kingdoms, there was a bunch of battles, but I wouldn't say it was super violent. Like there was moments, but not like this one.
Right,
So
right. Oh, I agree.
that was that was neat. That was, but I wonder how much time was between Three Kingdoms, like not in the stories, but written. Like I wonder how much time, because there was the one character that was Gan Yu's like great grandson.
Mhm,
So that's only like 50 years apart.
mhm,
So from the two stories,
mhm.
or was it as great, or was it like further down the line? I thought it was pretty close.
I don't remember. I should have kept up better with the characters. And
It was the Gan Shangai. He made it. He was the one that his buddy's the one that got hit in the arm, so he chopped his own arm off in battle. Because that's what you would. That's normal. That's what you would
right.
do. For all it was worth, all the struggle it seemed like to get through it. I really did enjoy it. I really did.
Okay, so the as as long and torturous as the journey was, I mean, we've arrived at a good destination, right? I
Yes.
mean, it's
Well, I
okay.
guess that was. You also went on the adventure with them as you struggled through all these things just for an ending. I guess
Mhm.
I don't know.
No, I remember saying that I really liked it. I mean, it was just hard to keep track of where you were, like if you left it
Right.
for too long.
I give you that. Like even having to start over at one point. Um, I feel like if I wouldn't have started over after summer, I feel like I'd have been much more lost
Hmm.
than I was. But I like some of the what was it? Some of the warrior names we were talking about, the nicknames. There
Yeah.
was like the Black Whirlwind or the Magnificent Ruler, or,
Mm.
but then there were some of them like
The Marvelous Traveler
the
too,
Marvelous Traveler. But
right?
he was the
Okay.
fly on the wall. Um,
Oh, who was that? I don't
he was the one that could sneak
remember.
into break into anything. I don't remember his name, but I
Oh
remember the fly on
goodness.
the wall part.
Yes.
It started with, I guess, like she something, she cheese something like that.
Hmm.
But yeah, he was the one that broke it. But then there was other names like the vegetable gardener.
Were you as surprised as I was to read about the role that women played? You know,
Yeah,
and
I was. I was.
well, China is such a patriarchal society
Yeah.
that I mean, I think that's what surprised me about it.
But yeah, big role, big battles. 10 Feet of Steel and Sun the Witch, stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, and other women that were brought up previously were just kind of like they did their thing, but then they were disappeared. But they actually made them leaders, which
Right.
I thought
Yeah,
was I was very surprised by that. Um,
I was as well.
and then they went out and I don't know. Apparently it was apparently on the app or something that if you ordered something at Dunkin' Donuts, you got a free plain black coffee. So Casey Casey brought that in.
Oh,
Didn't know
wow.
didn't know anyone else that was crazy enough to drink plain black
Yes.
coffee. So
So you don't find it too acidic?
not especially this one. It's like water.
Do you prefer their coffee over Starbucks?
Mm.
My sister thinks it's better, but I don't know. I am. I'm just used to that really strong.
Well, if I go buy coffee, I'm not going to just buy a plain black coffee. I can do that at home, like.
Right.
But so if I buy a coffee, it's going to be something. It's going to be one of them fancy like toasted chestnut, like get the weirdest thing I can find. Like I'm not.
Oh,
So I, I
that's
really
right.
I really don't know how to compare it to. But I do. Or
So,
those like coffee milkshake things. Like I'm gonna get something. I'm gonna get something fancy.
like the frappuccinos.
Yeah. Or like the Dunkin' ones has that I don't know, they used to have them, I don't know if they still do, but it was basically just a giant coffee ice cream milkshake kind of thing.
How
Very
can that not be good,
very
right?
very decadent. But yeah.
Um, I was trying to think if we may have missed anything. I I didn't get to look over the book as much as I wanted to.
Well, there was so much to it that I mean it would be hard to talk about each little particular because I did have some notes and stuff about things that I enjoyed or certain like metaphors and things and certain situations that were interesting. But there was so much like it would take it would take way more. It would take as much time to discuss the book and like break it down from all the pieces than just a grand overview like we're doing.
Mhm.
But so I'm trying to look over the book too. That would there's I don't know. There's not
How
really a
do you?
way.
Yes. How do you look over a book this long and involved? I just kept looking over the chapter titles
Yeah,
and just sort of trying to get an idea, of what happened then and when and
I think something
whatnot.
this long too, especially the way we're doing this, where we're not breaking it down to like 10 different videos
Hmm.
or 10 different discussions, is the grand overview and the thoughts and feelings taken away from the experience of reading something so
Hmm.
long. And
Hmm.
but and I think we've both had, which I said, for as much as I could sit here and complain about how long it took me and how it never seemed to move forward, I feel like I had a good experience with it. Like that's the
Hmm.
weird part. Like that's what
Hmm.
I don't know how to like. Maybe it's some of that magic got sprinkled in that because it really is like I would if someone was looking for a challenge, I'd be like, read this one. It's really good.
Hmm. I am so glad that the reading experience was the same for you because I honestly thought that I was losing my mind. And I thought, am I that slow of a reader? I mean, just all of a sudden, I'm not a very fast reader to begin with, but I didn't think that I read that slowly.
Uh,
But that was just a pattern every single time I timed myself at 4 o'clock in the morning.
See, I am a slow reader, so it just seemed to.
No, but it was, I mean, I basically got the same amount of pages as you did. But granted, I was also still trying to wake up. So maybe that's the things we do for book club sometimes.
Like I didn't even like mean to do it, but like I'd finally like sit down and be like, okay, time to get into it. And I'd read. I don't even. I'd assume a page, but I don't know, and then I'd just wake up later and be like, oh, whoops. And it's
Right.
not because it's boring. It's
Mhm.
just I don't know something about it was very strange. The reading experience and the actual reading of it were two totally different
Mhm. Mhm.
things. I guess that's what we're. I guess that's the best way to word it. Because like usually talk about the reading experience, it's the story plus the actual act of doing as one unit. But this was two very different
Mhm.
things.
That's why I couldn't read it at night. I just always found myself falling asleep, and I thought this book will go into next year if I don't change something. So I
Yeah.
just, yeah. I mean, it almost did, huh? Almost.
we're gonna get,
But
we're gonna
we made it happen.
we're gonna get on track. Like this, it was just a little bit of a speed bump, but we're back on track. Back on track.
Right.
We got a short one now. Got a short.
Which I'm actually really enjoying. I haven't gotten that far, but I like the rhythm of of the Golden Ass so far.
Did you read the introduction or did you just go right into the story?
I am going to save the
Okay.
introduction for later. Um, I don't want to know too much about the book
Hmm.
before I start it, and I think that's why I liked um, the Water Margin so much. I didn't really know much about it other than the small
Right.
things that you told me, but I like the surprises.
But that's my go-to. I don't want to know anything about it. I just go right into it. I did read the introduction for this one though, but
Do you find that there were some spoilers?
I think there was. I mean, the way the introduction is broken down, it goes over every piece, and it's actually like a remake, quote unquote, of another story.
Oh, the Golden Asses?
Mhm.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But the author Apelius put in like put himself into it, and he kind of goes into like what was before and what did he do. But we'll get to all that. We'll get to all that next time.
Okay.
Next time, hopefully, much sooner than later. But we did it. No one can take that away.
Right.
Now you have read, or now we have read. We have read all the 1001 Nights, plus two of the biggest books in Chinese history. And I don't. Oh, and Genji.
I was not going to let you forget the Tale of Genji.
That one. Oh.
I did not enjoy that one either. It was really weird. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, that one was
weird and creepy.
That one was the worst one. I know. Like I said, like I see the interest and the value of it for being the first quote unquote novel, but at the same time, like I don't know if the water margin was just because it was just as long as Genji, but if it was just as like awful, I don't know if we'd be able to continue.
It may have ended our book club for sure.
But I think it's interesting too that we're starting from the beginning and not just going randomly and like picking and choosing ones that we think we'd like. We're just going down the list, and I feel that adds to the experience and the challenge of it, forcing us into territories I wouldn't normally like. I probably wouldn't have picked up the wider margin on my own, but now very glad I did. And same thing with like the Golden Ass. That's not something. Well, I don't know. I did read Ovid's The Metamorphoses, and I really like that. Okay. So maybe I would have found it at some point, but that gets mentioned in the intro too. You'll see.
Okay. That's what I was going to mention. The thing that I love about these book challenges is that it forces you to read books that you wouldn't normally read or even think about picking up.
Right.
And I feel like my reading life experience is so much richer, except for maybe the Tale of Genji.
But even that, I mean, but now, whenever you get something modern that's kind of bad, you'll be like, well, at least it's not the Tale of Genji, and so that's just use that as the fuel for your reading fires.
So, what number is the Golden Ass?
6, I think.
We're making headway.
It's only been like 2 years. 3 years? It's only been like 3 years. Yeah, okay. 1001 Nights. The one, I always forget the story of the bamboo cutter's daughter.
Yes.
Genji, 3 Kingdoms, water margin.
Wasn't there's something else too? I mean, it almost seems like we're missing one more.
Well, we had.
I could be wrong.
Sorrowland in between. Did we? Are we missing one?
I'm not sure, but 5 or 6 sounds right?
Yeah, it's not. We're not in the double digits.
We're getting there though.
We're getting very
close. We're on the other side, closer to 10 than.
Yeah, when I'm gonna look it up. I think water margin's 5.
Oh dear. Were you just not hoping that a Wu-Tang would show up?
I think.
I don't know why I was just.
Maybe he's in the next Chinese epic. That's.
I mean the Wu-Tang Clan. I mean, like if one was to show up.